The autumn afternoon was like any other at Taylor's department store in the heart of Westfield. Bright lights bounced off polished floors as shoppers moved between racks of clothing and display cases. Among them was Marcus Johnson, a tall, lanky 17-year-old with a warm smile and determined eyes. Marcus had one mission today: find the perfect birthday gift for his mother. He had saved up for weeks from his part-time job at the local library. His mother's birthday was this weekend, and he wanted to surprise her with something special. Maybe a necklace, Marcus thought as he walked toward the jewelry section. His mother always admired simple, elegant pieces. He adjusted his school backpack on his shoulder and headed to the glass cases where necklaces sparkled under bright display lights. As Marcus leaned over to look at a silver pendant, he felt someone's eyes on him. He glanced up to see a security guard in a dark uniform standing near the end of the counter, watching him. Marcus offered a polite smile, but the guard didn't smile back. Marcus moved to another display case. The guard moved too. "Can I help you find something?" asked a sales associate. "Just looking for a gift for my mom," Marcus explained. "Her birthday is Saturday." "Let me know if you need any help," she said before helping another customer. Marcus noticed the guard was still watching him. This wasn't new to him. It happened before at other stores. His father had talks with him about this, about how to stay calm, how to behave when people made unfair judgments based on his skin color. Up in the store's office, Karen Wilson, the store manager, watched the security cameras with narrow eyes. She had worked at Taylor's for 12 years and prided herself on preventing theft. When she spotted Marcus with his backpack, something about him made her suspicious. "Keep an eye on that young man in the jewelry section," she said into her radio to the security guard. "The one with the backpack." The guard's voice crackled back. "Already on it, Ms. Wilson." Marcus, unaware of the conversation, continued examining the jewelry. He found a simple silver necklace with a small blue stone, his mother's favorite color. The price tag read $85. It was perfect, just within his budget. He waved to get the sales associate's attention. "I'd like to look at this one, please," he said, pointing to the necklace. As the associate unlocked the case, Karen Wilson left her office and headed downstairs. Something didn't feel right to her. Too many teenagers had been lifting merchandise lately, and this boy seemed too interested in the expensive items. Marcus held the necklace carefully, imagining how it would look on his mother. The blue stone reminded him of the dress she wore in his favorite family photo. "I'll take it," he told the associate with a smile. "It's perfect." As the associate began processing his purchase, Karen Wilson appeared at the counter, her arms crossed over her chest. The security guard moved closer. "Is there a problem?" Marcus asked politely, noticing how they were looking at him. Karen's eyes went to his backpack. "Would you mind showing me what's in your bag?" she asked, her voice sharp. Marcus felt his heart sink. He had done nothing wrong. He was just trying to buy a gift for his mother. Little did Karen Wilson know that her decision in the next few minutes would set off a chain of events that would change both their lives and the entire community. Forever. Marcus felt all eyes in the jewelry section turn toward him. His hand, still holding the necklace, began to tremble slightly. "I haven't done anything wrong," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm just like his father had taught him. "I'm just buying a gift for my mom." Karen Wilson's face remained stern. "Store policy. We can check any bags if we suspect something," she said, holding out her hand. "Please hand over your backpack." Marcus took a deep breath. Other customers were watching now, some pretending not to look while others stared openly. The security guard moved closer, standing just behind Karen. "I have my school things in here," Marcus explained. "I came straight from basketball practice. You can see I'm trying to pay for this necklace. Here's my money." He pulled out his wallet, showing the cash he had saved. Karen's eyes narrowed. "If you have nothing to hide, then you shouldn't mind showing me what's in the bag." Marcus remembered his father's words. "You have rights, son. Always be respectful, but know your rights." He had done nothing wrong, and legally, he knew they couldn't search his bag without reason. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I haven't stolen anything. I don't think you have the right to search my backpack without cause. I'd like to just pay for this necklace and leave." Karen's face turned red. "Now you're being difficult. This is exactly the kind of behavior that makes me suspicious." The sales associate behind the counter looked uncomfortable. Ms. Wilson, he was just looking at. Jennifer, I'll handle this. Karen cut her off sharply. Two older women shopping nearby whispered to each other. A younger man with a phone seemed to be recording discreetly. Karen reached for her phone. If you won't cooperate, I'll have to call the police. Last chance to show me what's in that bag. Marcus felt a cold wave of fear wash over him, but he stood his ground. I've done nothing wrong. I know my rights. Karen dialed the police. Yes, hello. This is Karen Wilson, manager at Taylor's department store. I need officers here immediately. We have a young man who's being threatening and refusing to cooperate with security. I believe he may have stolen merchandise. Marcus could hear her words clearly. Threatening was a lie. He hadn't threatened anyone. I am not being threatening, Marcus said loudly enough for the 911 operator to hear. I'm just trying to buy a necklace for my mom. Karen turned away from him, lowering her voice. He's getting agitated. Please hurry. The security guard moved closer to Marcus. Just stay calm, kid. Police will sort this out. Marcus carefully placed the necklace back on the counter. His mother had always told him to keep his dignity no matter what. I don't want any trouble, he said, but I haven't done anything wrong. He reached for his phone in his pocket. The security guard tensed up. I'm just getting my phone, Marcus said clearly, showing his hands. I need to call my dad. Karen watched as Marcus dialed. Go ahead and call whoever you want. The police are on their way. Marcus's hands shook slightly as the phone rang. When his father answered, he kept his voice steady. Dad, I'm at Taylor's department store downtown. The manager thinks I stole something. They called the police on me. I was just trying to buy Mom's birthday gift. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I understand, son. Stay calm. Don't say anything else. I'm on my way right now. Marcus ended the call and looked at Karen Wilson, whose confident expression had not changed. She had no idea who Marcus's father was. She had no idea what was about to happen. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each second. The police cruiser pulled up in front of Taylor's department store with flashing lights but no siren. Two officers walked in, Officer Rivera, a veteran with 15 years on the force, and Officer Bennett, younger and only 3 years into the job. The store had grown unusually quiet. Customers pretended to shop while stealing glances at the jewelry section, where Marcus stood with the store manager and security guard. What seems to be the problem here? Officer Rivera asked, looking between Karen Wilson and Marcus. Karen stepped forward quickly. This young man has been acting suspiciously. He refused to let us check his backpack when asked. I believe he may have stolen merchandise. Officer Bennett turned to Marcus. Your name, son? Marcus Johnson, sir. His voice was steady despite his racing heart. I haven't stolen anything. I came to buy a birthday gift for my mother. The sales associate, Jennifer, spoke up from behind the counter. He was about to pay for a necklace when Ms. Wilson came down. Officer Rivera nodded. Do you have ID, Marcus? Marcus slowly reached for his wallet and pulled out his school ID card. The officer examined it. Johnson. Officer Rivera's expression changed slightly as he read the name. He looked at Marcus more carefully. Any relation to Mayor Johnson? Before Marcus could answer, Karen Wilson let out a small laugh. Oh, please. He's just trying to intimidate us by pretending to be connected to important people. Marcus kept his eyes on the officer. James Johnson is my father. He's lying, Karen insisted, though her voice carried less conviction now. Officer Bennett studied Marcus's face. You know, he does look like the mayor's son. I saw them together at the community baseball game last month. Karen's confident smile faltered. Even if that's true, we still have store policies. No one is above the rules. What evidence do you have that he stole something? Officer Rivera asked Karen directly. Karen hesitated. Well, he was acting suspicious, looking at expensive items. And when I asked to check his backpack, he refused. Innocent people don't refuse. That's not true, Officer Rivera said. Citizens have rights. We need reasonable suspicion to conduct searches. He turned to Marcus. Were you doing anything besides shopping? No, sir. I saved up to buy my mom a necklace for her birthday. I was about to pay when Ms. Wilson came over. I have the money right here. Marcus showed them the cash in his wallet. More customers had gathered now, watching the scene unfold. Someone was definitely recording with their phone. Ms. Wilson, Officer Bennett said, has merchandise gone missing from the display cases? Well, no, not that we've noticed yet, but... Did any alarms go off? No, but... Did you actually see him conceal any merchandise? Karen's face flushed. No, but his behavior was suspicious. What specific behavior? Officer Rivera pressed. He was, looking at expensive items, and Karen's voice trailed off as she realized how weak her argument sounded. The front doors of the store swung open. A tall, distinguished man in a perfectly tailored suit walked in with purpose. His presence commanded attention immediately. Several customers whispered. Someone said, "It's the mayor." Mayor James Johnson spotted his son and the officers and walked directly toward them. His face was calm, but his eyes were intense. Karen Wilson's face drained of color as she recognized him from TV and newspaper photos. This was indeed the mayor, the city's first black mayor, elected just 6 months ago on a platform that included addressing racial profiling. "Marcus, are you all right?" The mayor asked his son first. "Yes, Dad, I'm okay." Mayor Johnson turned to the officers. "Officers Rivera and Bennett, isn't it? Can someone explain what's happening with my son?" Karen Wilson suddenly looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. The confrontation she had started was about to take a turn she never expected. The air in Taylor's department store seemed to freeze as Mayor James Johnson stood beside his son. He was not wearing his usual friendly politician's smile. His eyes moved from the officers to Karen Wilson, who had taken a small step backward. "Mayor Johnson," Officer Rivera said with a respectful nod. "There seems to be a misunderstanding here." Karen Wilson's mouth opened and closed without words coming out. The security guard looked at his shoes. Customers had stopped pretending to shop and were openly watching now. "A misunderstanding," the mayor repeated, his deep voice calm but firm. "Please elaborate." Officer Bennett gestured toward Karen. "The store manager called about a suspected shoplifter, but we haven't found any evidence of theft." Mayor Johnson turned his full attention to Karen Wilson. "You're the manager who called the police on my son." Karen straightened her back, trying to regain her composure. "Mayor Johnson, I had no idea he was your son. We have store policies that..." "My son's identity shouldn't matter," the mayor interrupted. "What matters is whether he did anything wrong." He looked at Marcus. "Did you steal something, son?" "No, Dad. I was buying Mom's birthday present." Marcus pointed to the necklace still sitting on the counter. "Jennifer, the sales associate, spoke up again. He was showing me the money to pay when Ms. Wilson came down." Mayor Johnson nodded. "So let me understand this clearly." He turned back to Karen. "You called the police because a young black man was shopping for jewelry." "It wasn't like that," Karen insisted, her voice higher than before. "We've had several thefts recently, and he was carrying a backpack, and when I asked to search it, he refused." "As is his right," Mayor Johnson said. "Unless you saw him take something, you had no grounds to demand a search." An older woman watching nearby spoke up. "I was shopping here the whole time. That young man was just looking at necklaces like anyone else would." A man in his 30s added, "I'm a law student. What happened here looks like textbook racial profiling." Karen's face flushed deep red. "This isn't fair. I was just doing my job." "Your job is to manage a store, not to harass innocent customers based on how they look," Mayor Johnson said. He was not shouting, but his words carried throughout the now silent store. Officer Rivera cleared his throat. "Mayor Johnson, we responded to the call as required, but we don't see any evidence of a crime here." "I appreciate that, officer," the mayor said with a nod. Marcus stood tall beside his father, his dignity intact despite the humiliation he had endured. Some of the customers were nodding in approval at his composure. Karen suddenly seemed to realize how many people were watching and recording this encounter. Several phones were out, capturing everything. This could be on social media within minutes. Her hands began to shake slightly. "Mayor Johnson," she said, her voice now trembling, "perhaps we could discuss this in my office away from..." "No," the mayor said firmly. "There's nothing to discuss in private. My son was publicly accused and humiliated. Whatever happens next should also be public." Mayor Johnson then did something unexpected. He placed his hand gently on Marcus's shoulder and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "This is my son, Marcus Johnson. He's 17 years old. He has a 3.8 GPA at Westfield High. He volunteers at the Children's Hospital every Saturday. He has never been in trouble a day in his life." He looked directly at Karen. But none of that should matter either. Every person deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of who they are or who their parents might be. Karen Wilson looked as though she might faint. The regional director would hear about this. The corporate office would hear about this. Everyone would hear about this. I'm sorry," she stammered. "There's been a terrible mistake." "Yes," Mayor Johnson agreed. "There has been, and now we need to talk about how to make it right." Mayor Johnson's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it, and then looked back at Karen with an expression that made her stomach sink even further. "It appears this incident is already trending on social media," he said quietly. "The court of public opinion moves very quickly these days." The tension in Taylor's department store hung heavy in the air. Customers had formed a semicircle around the scene, many with phones recording everything. The hashtag #ShoppingWhileBlack was already trending locally, with videos of the confrontation spreading quickly across social media platforms. Karen Wilson looked desperately around the store, as if searching for an escape route. "Mayor Johnson, please. Let's handle this professionally," she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. The mayor studied her for a moment. Those who expected him to use his position to humiliate Karen were surprised by what happened next. "Officer Rivera, Officer Bennett, thank you for your response today," Mayor Johnson said calmly. "I believe we've established that no crime has occurred?" Officer Rivera nodded. "That's correct, sir. We'll be on our way unless anyone needs anything further from us." "Actually," the mayor said, "I would appreciate if you both stayed a few more minutes. What happened here today is exactly the kind of situation our community needs to learn from." He turned to face Karen directly. His expression wasn't angry, but it was deeply serious. "Ms. Wilson, you mentioned store policy several times. I'd like to see that policy, please." Karen blinked rapidly. "Well, it's more of an unwritten policy," Mayor Johnson repeated. "So there's nothing in writing that tells your employees to single out certain customers for bag searches based on how they look?" "That's not what Karen started. "Dad," Marcus said quietly. "Everyone's watching." Mayor Johnson nodded at his son. "Yes, they are, and that's important." He addressed the gathered crowd. "What happened to my son today happens to people in our community every day. The difference is, most don't have a mayor for a father." Several people nodded in agreement. An elderly black woman near the back wiped a tear from her eye. Mayor Johnson continued, his voice measured and clear. "I'm not here to demand Ms. Wilson's job or to threaten this store with boycotts. I'm here because my son needed me. But now that I am here, I believe we have an opportunity." Karen looked confused. "An opportunity?" "Yes, an opportunity to make real change." The mayor turned to address everyone. "As your mayor, I could make a public statement condemning this store. I could call for people to shop elsewhere. I could make this a bigger scandal than it already is." He paused, looking at Marcus with pride in his eyes. "But that wouldn't solve the real problem. The real problem is deeper than one incident or one store manager." Marcus stood tall beside his father, understanding filling his eyes. This was why his father had run for mayor, to address problems at their root. "Here's what I propose," Mayor Johnson said, now addressing Karen directly. "Taylor's department store will work with my office to implement a comprehensive anti-bias training program, not just here, but in all your locations in our city. You'll review your security practices with a third-party consultant specialized in equitable retailing." Karen nodded quickly, relief washing over her face. "Yes, of course. Absolutely." Additionally, the mayor continued, "I'll be establishing a community task force on retail equity. Ms. Wilson, I'd like you to serve on that task force, not as a punishment, but as someone who has now seen firsthand why this work is necessary." A murmur ran through the crowd. This wasn't the angry tirade they had expected. This was leadership. Karen's expression shifted from fear to surprise. "You want me to serve on your task force? After what I did?" "Especially after what you did," Mayor Johnson replied. Real change doesn't come from punishment alone, it comes from education and understanding. He turned to Marcus. My son came here today to buy his mother a birthday gift. I'd like him to complete that purchase now, unless Taylor's doesn't want his business anymore. Of course we do, Karen said quickly. Jennifer, please help him with the necklace. As Jennifer carefully placed the silver and blue stone necklace in a gift box, Mayor Johnson placed his hand on his son's shoulder. I'm proud of you, Marcus, he said softly. You handled yourself with dignity today. Marcus nodded, understanding that this moment was bigger than just him. It was about creating change that would affect many others who might not have a mayor for a father. By evening, the incident at Taylor's department store had exploded across social media. The videos, shot from various angles by customers, told a powerful story. One clip showing Marcus's calm demeanor as he was confronted had been viewed over 200,000 times. Another capturing Mayor Johnson's measured response had been shared by several national civil rights organizations. Local news vans parked outside Taylor's, their reporters doing live broadcasts for the evening news. Tonight, a shopping trip turns into a lesson on racial profiling. One reporter began her segment, the store's illuminated sign glowing behind her in the dusk. Marcus sat at the dining table in the Johnson family home, watching his father field calls from reporters, community leaders, and concerned citizens. His mother, Diane Johnson, placed the new silver and blue necklace around her neck, admiring it in a small mirror. It's beautiful, Marcus, she said, touching the stone gently, though I wish it hadn't come with such drama. Marcus managed a small smile. I'm sorry about that, Mom. I just wanted to get you something nice. Diane sat beside her son and took his hand. You have nothing to apologize for. I'm so proud of how you handled yourself today. Mayor Johnson ended his call and joined his family at the table. That was Reverend Miles from First Baptist. The church is organizing a community discussion about what happened today. He looked tired but determined. How are you doing, son? He asked Marcus. Marcus shrugged. My phone won't stop buzzing. Everyone from school has seen the videos. Are you ready to talk about it? His father asked. Marcus nodded slowly. I kept thinking about all those talks we've had, about how to act when something like this happens. I never thought it would happen to me, not really. Not in our own city. Diane squeezed his hand. That's why those talks are so important. Even being the mayor's son doesn't shield you from this reality. The doorbell rang. Mayor Johnson checked his watch. That must be the Channel 5 crew. I told them we'd give one statement tonight, but that's it. Marcus stood up. I want to speak too, Dad. His parents exchanged a glance. Are you sure? His mother asked. Yes, Marcus said firmly. People need to hear from me, not just about me. As Mayor Johnson opened the door, his phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Taylor's department store corporate headquarters. He opened it quickly and read it aloud to his family. Taylor's department store extends its sincerest apologies to Marcus Johnson and his family for the inexcusable treatment he received at our Westfield location. We are launching a full investigation into the incident and will be implementing immediate changes to our training and security protocols. Marcus listened as his father continued reading. The statement went on to announce that Karen Wilson had been placed on administrative leave pending a review, and that the company would be making a donation to the Urban Youth Opportunity Foundation, a charity that the mayor had championed. They're in damage control mode, Diane observed. Yes, the mayor agreed, but at least they're taking it seriously. The television crew set up their equipment in the living room. The young reporter, Sophia Chen, arranged her notes while the cameraman adjusted his lights. Mayor Johnson, Marcus, thank you for speaking with us tonight, Sophia began. The videos from today's incident have sparked an important conversation in our community. Can you tell us, in your own words, what happened? Marcus took a deep breath. The eyes of the city were on him now. His father had always told him that sometimes challenges became platforms, opportunities to speak truth and create change. This was one of those moments. What happened to me today happens to people who look like me every day, Marcus began, his voice stronger than he expected. The difference is, most don't have cameras recording. Most don't have a mayor for a father. I want to tell this story for them, not just for myself. The red light on the camera glowed steadily as Marcus spoke from his heart. transforming a painful experience into a powerful testimony. The morning after the incident, Taylor's department store opened to find a small group of peaceful protesters outside. They carried signs reading "Shop with dignity" and "Respect all customers." News crews interviewed them while store employees nervously watched from inside. At 9:30 a.m., a black luxury sedan pulled up in front of the store. A tall woman in a crisp business suit stepped out. Patricia Reynolds, the regional director of Taylor's, had flown in overnight after seeing the videos that had now gone viral nationwide. Karen Wilson waited in her office, her stomach in knots. She had barely slept, replaying yesterday's events over and over in her mind. When her phone rang, she jumped. "Ms. Wilson, Ms. Reynolds is here to see you," her assistant said. Karen smoothed her hair and straightened her jacket. "Send her in." Patricia Reynolds entered without a smile. "Karen, we need to talk about what happened yesterday." Before Karen could respond, Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed. "The company stock is down 3% this morning. Hashtag boycott Taylor's is trending nationally." Karen's eyes filled with tears. "Patricia, I was just following what I thought was proper loss prevention." "What you did," Patricia interrupted, "was racially profile a teenager who was trying to buy a gift for his mother. And not just any teenager, but the son of the mayor." "I didn't know he was the mayor's son," Karen protested. Patricia shook her head. "That makes it worse, not better. It shouldn't matter who his father is. What matters is that you called the police on a young man who had done absolutely nothing wrong." Karen fell silent, the truth of those words sinking in. "Corporate has made some decisions," Patricia continued. "First, you're on paid administrative leave while we conduct a full review." Karen nodded, having expected this. "Second, you'll be required to complete an extensive sensitivity and anti-bias training program if you wish to remain with the company." "I understand," Karen whispered. "Third," Patricia said, her tone softening slightly, "we think it would be appropriate for you to personally apologize to Marcus Johnson and his family." Karen's eyes widened. "Face to face, I don't think they want to see me." "Perhaps not. But accountability means facing those you've wronged." Across town at City Hall, Mayor Johnson was meeting with his staff about the incident. The mayor's office had been flooded with calls and emails, most supporting Marcus but some questioning why the mayor was making such a big deal about it. "We've received an official apology from Taylor's corporate office," his assistant reported. "They're requesting a meeting to discuss next steps." Mayor Johnson nodded. "Schedule it for tomorrow, and add it to the agenda for tonight's community forum." The mayor had organized an emergency town hall meeting to address what had happened. The community center was expected to be filled to capacity. Later that afternoon, Marcus sat in his father's office, reviewing his statement for the town hall. "Are you nervous?" Mayor Johnson asked his son. Marcus considered the question. "A little, but mostly, I feel responsible, like I need to use what happened to help make things better." The mayor smiled with pride. "That's how change happens, son." A knock at the door interrupted them. The mayor's assistant poked her head in. "Sir, Karen Wilson from Taylor's is here. She's asking if she could speak with Marcus privately." Marcus and his father exchanged surprised looks. "It's your call, Marcus," the mayor said. Marcus took a deep breath. "I'll talk to her." Karen Wilson entered the office, looking nothing like the confident store manager from yesterday. Her shoulders were hunched, her eyes red from crying. "Thank you for seeing me, Marcus," she said softly. Marcus gestured to a chair. "You wanted to talk?" Karen sat down, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I came to apologize. What I did was wrong. I made assumptions about you based on how you look. There's no excuse for that." Marcus studied her face, seeing genuine regret there. "No, there isn't," he agreed. "I've been thinking about why I did it," Karen continued, her voice shaking. "And I realize I've been carrying these biases I didn't even know I had." Marcus nodded. "That's the problem. A lot of people don't recognize their own biases." For the first time, they looked at each other not as adversaries, but as two people beginning to understand each other. It was a small step, but an important one on the long road to accountability and change. 6 months passed since the incident at Taylor's department store. The summer heat had given way to autumn Christmas, and the city of Westfield had changed in subtle but meaningful ways. The community center buzzed with activity as teenagers and adults gathered for the monthly meeting of the Retail Equity Youth Council. At the front of the room stood Marcus Johnson, now 18 and preparing for college applications. His confidence had grown over these months, his voice stronger as he called the meeting to order. Before we start today's agenda, Marcus announced, "I want to welcome the new members from East Westfield High. Thanks for joining us." 3 teenagers in the back row smiled and waved. The council, which had started with just 5 members, now included 25 young people from across the city. Mayor James Johnson watched from the doorway, not wanting to interrupt. His son had taken an experience that might have left many bitter and transformed it into a force for change. The mayor checked his watch. He had another meeting soon, but he wanted to see this first. "Today we're reviewing the progress report from the businesses that signed our fair shopping pledge," Marcus continued. "So far, 28 stores have implemented the new training program, and feedback from customers has been positive." A hand went up from the audience. It belonged to Karen Wilson, who now served as the community liaison for Taylor's department store. The past 6 months had changed her, too. Gone was the defensive store manager who saw only potential thieves. In her place was a woman committed to doing better. "Marcus," Karen said, "I wanted to share something. Our customer satisfaction scores have actually gone up 15% since implementing the changes. It turns out when people feel respected while shopping, they come back more often." Murmurs of approval went through the room. What had started as a painful incident had become a model for retail businesses across the city. "That's great to hear, Ms. Wilson," Marcus replied with a nod. There was no tension between them now, not friendship exactly, but a mutual respect born from difficult conversations and genuine effort. At the back of the room, Jennifer, the sales associate who had witnessed everything that day, smiled. She had been promoted to assistant manager after the incident, part of Taylor's effort to diversify its leadership. Mayor Johnson slipped away quietly, heading to his next appointment, a meeting with the police chief about the department's new community engagement program. The incident at Taylor's had sparked conversations about not just retail bias, but all the ways prejudice showed up in daily life. Later that evening, the Johnson family gathered at home for dinner. Diane Johnson wore the silver and blue necklace that had started everything. It had become something of a symbol for her, a reminder of her son's courage and her husband's leadership. "How was the council meeting?" she asked Marcus as she served the food. "Really good," Marcus replied. "We're making actual progress. Stores are changing their policies. People are talking about things they used to ignore." Mayor Johnson smiled at his son. "You've done something remarkable, Marcus. You took an injustice and turned it into an opportunity for our whole community." Marcus shrugged modestly. "I had a good example to follow." Diane reached across the table and squeezed her son's hand. "You know, in a few months you'll be heading to college. Have you thought about what you want to study?" Marcus nodded. "I'm thinking about law or maybe public policy. I want to keep doing this kind of work." As they ate dinner, the local news played quietly on the television in the background. A reporter stood outside Taylor's department store where a ceremony was taking place. The camera showed Karen Wilson and Patricia Reynolds unveiling a new sign, "Everyone welcome. Everyone respected." 6 months ago, this store was at the center of a controversy, the reporter said. Today, it's leading the way in showing how businesses can build trust with all members of the community. Mayor Johnson pointed to the screen. "See that? Real change happens when people are willing to learn from their mistakes." Marcus watched the report, a sense of accomplishment washing over him. What had begun as a simple trip to buy a birthday gift had transformed not just his life, but his community. Sometimes, change started in the most unexpected places, even at a jewelry counter in a department store.